Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Lizzie, and as you probably read from the title, I'm going to be doing my favorite horror films since birth. So this is a trend that has been kind of going around on TikTok, and then I know that Vicky from Nightmare Maven did this video as well, so make sure that you check hers out because she, just like myself, just had a birthday. Mine was on the 25th, this past Saturday. And so I thought it would be fun to kind of do this video as well. It's going to be a long one, so we're just going to kind of get into it because we got 32 films to go through. So first from 90 is Stephen King's Misery. I, of course, love this film. This has made it to probably every video in this category of 90s films. I've done, from favorite films from the year I was born. This one always makes it onto the list. Such a fantastic adaptation and just terrifying film. Love this one. So from 91, we have Silence of the Lambs. Of course, this one had to make it onto the list. This is just one of my absolute favorite horror films, probably just in general. I know some people may not categorize this as a horror film, and I definitely did cheat on this list a little bit. There are some thrillers, there are some horror comedies that kind of made it onto the list that I had to cheat about, so I guess you could kind of count this as our first cheat film. I see this film as a horror film, and I absolutely loved it, so of course it had to be my pick for 91. Then we have 92, which of course is Vicky's year, and for that one I did Candyman. Again, this one is another one that makes it onto all of these lists. The original Candyman, starring the always terrifying Tony Todd. Just absolutely love this film. From 93, we have, and again, this one's a bit of a cheat, but I went with A Nightmare Before Christmas. There were not a whole lot of horror films that kind of came out that year. I mean, there were some, but we had this, we had Hocus Pocus, we had those kind of Disney safe kids horror films, which of course is or spooky films, which of course is what I would have been watching at that age. And this is definitely one that I grew up on. I love The Night Before Christmas. I watch it every Christmas and Halloween. It's just a go-to rewatch film. Grew up with this one, so I had to pick it, put it on the list. But I was really torn between this one and Hocus Pocus, but it won out. 94, we have, of course, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now, if you did not see my series where I reviewed all of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, make sure that you check that out. I just recently did that, but I love this film. It is my absolute favorite Nightmare film, aside from, of course, the original, but I definitely think it pushes to that first slot. So good. I loved the concept of this film being placed in the real world and our Freddy character really coming to life, and the actors playing themselves, I think is really, really cool, and I love that movie. So then after that we have 95, and that is again another film. This one's a little bit of a cheat. I know some people won't see this as a horror film and more of a thriller, but it is Seven. This was a film that actually I feel took me a while to actually watch the full thing, because it's one of those films that pops up on TV late night all the time. And so I definitely saw it in parts, but once I actually finally really saw this film in its entirety, it freaked me out. It's a film that still freaks me out. There are scenes in this film that get to me every single time, and I constitute it as a horror. I think it can definitely be terrifying. And I mean, who's not ever quoted what's in the box? Especially anytime you get a package. Love that movie. So that one, of course, made it to the list. And then, of course, for 96, no surprise to anybody, it's gonna be Scream. Favorite, clearly, movie of all time. We're just gonna skip past talking about it because I talked about that film so many times. Of course, it's Scream. Then 97, of course, we have, and I couldn't leave it off this list. I tried. There were some other films that were definitely pushing it, but of course, Scream 2 won its spot. We're just gonna skip right past talking about that film as well because I've covered a million times on this channel. Then for 98, we have, in plot twist, it is not Scream 3, it is Urban Legends. Now this one was hard because we obviously have Scream 3, we have I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, but Urban Legends won out. This is another favorite just like 90s film. I know there's probably people are going to argue with me about there being better films from that year, but I love Urban Legends. I know it's a little bit cheesy, but I love the concept of Urban Legends in general, so of course I love this film as well. Okay, and then for 99, last year of the 90s, we have House on Haunted Hill, the remake. I actually did not see this film for the first time until this year. And I absolutely loved it. I think that it is a fantastic remake. It definitely has that late 90s, early 2000s cheese vibe to it, but it's still a very good film and has a fantastic cast of people. And if you have not seen this film, highly, highly suggest checking it out. Now to get into the 2000s, the first film, of course, there was a lot of options, but for this one I had to give it to Final Destination. This is just one of, if you know me, if you're not new to the channel, you know that this is one of my absolute favorite just horror films of all time, absolute favorite franchise. Anytime I'm asked favorite horror films, Final Destination always makes it to the top of the list. Franchise that still to this day like scares the pants off me. Absolutely love it. So of course, had to give it to that one. Now, 2001, this is another film that I actually did not see to this year, and I was so surprised that I slept on this film for so long, especially because it has our boy Matthew Lillard in it. That is 13 Ghosts. This is, of course, another remake, and I just loved this film. Love the entire concept of it. Love the way the ghosts are done. I've done a whole review on this film. I've reviewed a lot of these, so if you're interested, just check those out for my full opinions on it. But yeah, I watched this one this year and it instantly became a favorite and could not believe that it took me so long to watch it. 2002, another year that had a lot of really good options. I know some people are probably going to disagree with me about this one, but I had to give it to Queen of the Damned. I know that this is a film that a lot of people don't really like. I understand that it is not a great adaptation of a classic novel, but I still love it. I mean, you have Aaliyah as this queen of vampires, total badass. You also, just the soundtrack for this film alone is so amazing. It's probably like one of my absolute favorite soundtracks of all time. Like, you can at least listen to that and love and appreciate this film for that, which I do. And I just love that film. As cheesy as it is, it's early 2000s cheese. I still love it anyway. Then 2003, again, another really good year that had a lot of really good options, but I had to give it to Final Destination 2. As you can see, this list is filled with like a lot of the kind of franchises adding on to it. I love this movie and I just love this franchise so much that I just had to pick Final Destination 2. There was no way around it. It was going to be the pick for this year. Then for 2004, we have the first Saw film. This film came out that year, revolutionized horror in a way, started a whole new genre. Maybe not started, but definitely amped up the genre. And of course, have to give credit where credit is due. Another favorite franchise of mine, another franchise that I've done full series on. I also did Final Destination as well. Done a lot of those. So yes, I just gotta give 2004 to Saw, which of course brings me to 2005, and again, another sequel. Have to give this one to Saw 2, because that is my favorite Saw film. If you're not new to the channel, you already know that. Again, another absolute favorite. When I'm listing off my favorite horror films, I always say Saw 2. I think it still holds up even after watching the entire franchise. Saw 2 is still my absolute favorite. This is a film that I can continue to rewatch, and I love the ending of this film. It is so good. 2006, again a sequel, giving it to another Final Destination film, which is Final Destination 3. Again, I absolutely, I don't think I need to say much about it. Watch my full review if you want a real opinion on it. I love Final Destination, obviously. Now, plot twist, Final Destination 4 is not on this list, and I think we all know why. 2007, again, probably at no surprise to anybody. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, Trick or Treat. Again, an absolute favorite horror film of all time. This is a horror anthology, and I very much clearly love this film. Then for 2008, this one, I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of options from that year, so I ended up giving this one to Saw 5. It's a good film. I like Saw. Again, it's part of a franchise, so it's not my favorite Saw film, but it is definitely up there on my list. I really like Saw 5. I think it's a really good film. So I ended up giving this year to Saw 5 because there wasn't like a whole lot of options for me that I really connected with other than this film. So moving on to 2009, another film that is maybe a little bit of a cheat. I don't think a lot of people see it necessarily as like a horror, but I don't really know what other category you would put this film in other than horror, and that is Jennifer's Body. I'm so glad that this film is finally getting more of the recognition that it deserves. I have always been Team Megan Fox. I have always, like, until kind of more recently, but I have always loved her, always been, like, straight to defend her. I think that this film was unfortunately so slept on. It came out, unfortunately, during a time where she was getting a lot of heat and a lot of hate, undeservingly so, and this film unfortunately suffered because of that and because of just bad advertising. If you are someone that still has not seen Jennifer's Body, please check this film out. It is so good, especially if you love like a teen monster slasher type film. This one you need to see. It's so good. Love this film. Now, 2010, another cheat one. This one is a horror comedy, more so than just a horror film, and that is Tucker and Dale versus Evil. This is another year that had quite a few on the list, but none that really get me as much as Tucker and Dale versus Evil. It's such a fucking funny movie. If you have not seen this film and you like a good horror comedy, you need to watch this one. I'm pretty sure it's still on Netflix. It's been on Netflix for forever. If it's not on there anymore, I'm sure you can find it somewhere to watch. I am going to give a little synopsis for this one. It is about these two brothers that go into a cabin in the woods and are faced with teens, but the kind of concept of these teens being hunted in the woods is flipped on itself, where Tucker and Dale are the ones who are actually being like hunted, and it's hilarious, and now I feel like I need to go watch it. Every time we talk about this film, I'm like, now I need to go watch it. I love this movie. 2011, probably no surprise to anybody, Scream 4. Of course, every Scream film, almost every Scream film was going to be on the list. I think the third one was the only one that didn't. So I think that was the same year Urban Legends. But yeah, Scream 4, for whatever reason, this film has been getting some heat lately. A lot of people are stepping out to say that they did not like Scream 4. I don't understand, because I absolutely loved Scream 4 when it came out, and I still love this film. I think it's so good. 2012, we have another what I feel like is quite slept on film, female-led, is American Mary. This film stars Katharine Isabelle as Mary, and it is a Soska Twins film. It is a rape revenge film, but it is one that I felt like was done really, really well, and is not the entire premise of the film. It is just a small part of the film, and I just love this film. If you have not seen this film, please check it out. I'm pretty sure, I think it's on Amazon Prime and maybe on Shudder. I know you can watch this somewhere online, so if you have not seen this film, please watch it. It is so good. 2013, another female-led slept-on horror film. This is All Cheerleaders Die. If you have seen Jennifer's Body and you enjoyed that film, this one is really good. Now, this one, I will say, not quite as good as Jennifer's Body. Jennifer's Body is female written and directed, where this one It is male written and directed, which I think if you watched my more recent reviews from this year, can be done fine. It's just, this is one of those films where I feel like in comparison to Jennifer's Body, you can kind of feel those differences. The characters, though, are still done really well, and I still really enjoy this film. It is about a group of teenagers that end up getting killed and come back for revenge. It is a film that I probably could have tackled this month because it is also a queer horror film. So again, if you like Jennifer's Body or Ginger Snaps, any of those kind of teenage supernatural films that you haven't seen on Cheerleaders Die, highly suggest checking out. I'm pretty sure it's free to watch on YouTube. So just, yeah, find it, check it out. Really good film. 2014. This was another year that definitely had some competition. I was really torn between a few films from this year because we have It Follows, The Haunting of Deborah Morgan, which I recently watched, but the film that ended up winning it out is Creep, which may be surprising to some of you. If you know me, you know that when it comes to kind of found footage style films, those aren't generally my go-to favorites, but this one is so good and so terrifying, like just such a terrifying concept. I also really enjoyed the sequel, but yeah, Creep, if you have not seen it, I believe this one is free to watch on YouTube as well, but I think it might also be on Netflix, at least in the US as well. So there's definitely places where you can watch that film, and if you are a found footage fan, I highly suggest checking it out because it's really, really good. 2015, this was a year where I actually almost skipped the year just because I really wasn't finding much from this year that really like grabbed my attention. So the film that ended up making the list is a film called Green Room. This is another one that I feel like a lot of people view it more as being like a thriller, suspense type film. I know a lot of people will not categorize this one as being horror, but I did, and I like this film. It's not by any means an absolute favorite. I have reviewed this film and I did really enjoy it. It is very intense. At times, it does star Patrick Stewart, surprisingly enough, as well as the late Antoine Yelchin, which is maybe part of why the attraction to this film are those two actors. And of course, Antoine, I think he's a fantastic actor, and I pretty much enjoy everything that he's been in. And he's in this, so I think it partially pulls at my heartstrings, but I still enjoyed this film and highly suggest it if you've never seen it. 2016. This was another year that there were definitely a lot of options to go with. I ended up going with The Autopsy of Jane Doe. I was actually really torn between this one and Terrifier because I really enjoyed Terrifier. It's a fantastic slasher film if you haven't seen it. Again, highly suggest checking it out, but as far as rewatching films from this year, The Autopsy of Jane Doe is one that I've rewatched a few times, and every time it gets to me, it is a terrifying film if you have never seen it and you are looking for something to scare the pants off you. I highly suggest this one. Again, this is coming from somebody who generally is not a big fan of possession-style films, but this is one that I give a pass to because it's just that fucking good. Now, 2017, probably no surprise to anybody, of course, is going to go to the It remake. Again, I just love that movie. I've rewatched this one several times. Now, this is a film that the rewatch factor wasn't great on. I went and saw it in the theaters the first time. A film that absolutely scared me, seeing it in theaters for the first time. Maybe partially the hype around it, but rewatch factor, not heavily great, but I still really enjoy it. It's definitely like a comfort horror film for me. It's a film that I can just like put on and enjoy watching. The sequel, maybe not so much, but really love 2017's It. 2018, another year that I was like, but Hellfest. That is a film that came out that year that I absolutely love. It has Bex Taylor Klaus in it, who they are in the Scream TV series, and so I really like that film. It's just a fun, like, slasher film. It takes place at like a haunted festival type style thing, Halloween night. Great Halloween slasher film, and I know that a lot of people didn't really like this film when it came out, but I loved it. I'm disappointed that I don't think we're gonna ever get a sequel, because it led to kind of feeling like there might be a sequel, but unfortunately, I think not enough people enjoyed the film, but I really like it, and I think it's really fun. Then for 2019, this was another year that had a lot of really good options, and I was really torn between quite a few films for this one. I ended up going with Ready or Not. I, again, loved this film. This was one that I didn't see in theaters, and I actually ended up watching kind of later on. But I really enjoyed this film. I love the concept. I think it's... And obviously, the creators of this film have now gone on to do Scream 5 and are going to be doing Scream 6. Which I have my own feelings about, but I think that they are fantastic filmmakers, and I really enjoy this film, and I think it's really good. So that one ended up kind of winning over the spot above some of the others, but there were really, really good films from this year. Us came out that year. I was really torn between those two films being on this list, but I ended up going with Ready or Not, because it just personally for me was my favorite. So then for 2020, another year that I was like, kind of felt lacking options. Maybe not too surprisingly, just because obviously pandemic, but we had the fantastic film Host, which I'm sure most of you have seen, but if you have not seen that film, the entire thing is filmed through like webcam. It takes place as these characters are basically trying to do this like seance over webcam, which of course things then go horribly, horribly wrong. But it is fantastic. It is a film that I think definitely lived up to its hype, and I totally love that film. 2001, we have a film by the same name as another film on this list, and it's Candyman. It's another remake. We got a few remakes that ended up on this list, surprisingly enough. And Candyman is one of those. I loved the Candyman remake, went and saw it in theaters. Again, this was another year that had quite a few options, but Candyman ended up winning it out for me, and loved that. And for the last film on the list from this year, 2022, I know the year is not over, and if you guys at the end of the year want to see a full list of my favorites, let me know. But of course, it is the most recent Scream. Now, I did just go see The Black Phone, which was also terrifying, but of course, Scream, it's always gonna make the list, it's always gonna win. Well, except for, I shouldn't say that because Scream 3 didn't, but the newest Scream, I love this film. I thought it was so good. I was very happy about this film, and I love it. So there you go. That is my list for all of my favorite horror films that have came out every year since the year that I was born. Whew, this is a long list. I hope that you guys did enjoy this. If you did, please do give this video a big old thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please share my content with your followers, friends, and family, whoever you can. Before I go, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my Patreons. Thank you guys so much for helping to contribute to the channel. If you want to know the perks to being a Patreon, links are in the description below, along with all of my social media, and I'll see you all again later with another video. Bye!